The back-to-school season brings a mix of excitement and anxiety for many children and their parents. The president of Mental Health America Knox County and mental health counselor at Vincennes University, Kathy Evans, is here today to talk about how to handle this season. Thanks for joining me today, Kathy.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Now that classes are in full swing here at VU, what's some of the biggest mental health struggles? Is it moving away from home for the first time, managing class loads, figuring out their future? What do you see as some of the big mental health struggles for Vincennes University students right now?
Well, certainly for first-time students, all those new things and those changes are creating some initial anxiety. We do find that for most of them, fairly quickly, they get into the routine, but of course, first day of class, you know, a lot of those beginning jitters. And then you, of course, have a subgroup of students who frankly struggle with both anxiety or depression or both, you know, having those things, or maybe some other mental health challenges. Maybe summer wasn't so great for those who went back home for the first time, or maybe they're coming out of high school and it's just a big transition and they're struggling with all the different changes related to that. And so sometimes we do see students who are, you know, struggling with those things, and we see they show up in our counseling center.
Right. So what does Vincennes University offer those students as far as services? Because I know, especially the first year students, this might be the first time they've ever had access to mental health care. Mm-hmm. So what all do you offer?
Well, we offer free mental health counseling to all students who are in classes. And so all they really have to do is to go to the Counseling Center website, which is vinu.edu and then /counseling, or else they can just Google Vincennes University Counseling Center, and fill out an intake document. And once they fill out that document, we'll contact them and get them set up for an appointment. We work around their class schedule, and really, yeah, just every student is eligible for those services.
Okay, and are you in with the healthcare, the Vincennes University primary care
Actually
clinic?
not. We're
Okay.
actually in the back of the library.
Okay.
We're actually in the same office as the Office of Diverse Abilities and Accommodations. We share a secretary, but we are completely two separate offices as far as confidentiality.
Right.
And that is another piece I really want to bring to the table. Everything is completely confidential. It's just like walking into any other mental health center. We follow all the HIPAA guidelines. We follow our code of ethics. And so I think it's important that students understand. I always joke that no matter if a teacher came in or anybody came in and asked about it, we couldn't give them any information about whether they were seeking services or not.
Right. So. What do you think, as from your opinion, their students, you know, they come here to get an education, but what role does mental health care play in, you know, achieving that education and becoming adults? You know, what part does that play in their time here at Vincennes University?
I think it's a really important thing that it plays, and I think that they need to be paying attention to that right at the beginning. Now, there's the big three, you know, diet, sleep, and I don't like to use the word exercise, I'll be honest with you. I like to use the word movement. Mm-hmm. You know, getting going, getting movement. And then in addition to that, making social connections, making connections with other people so they don't feel isolated. Mm-hmm. So I really think that those are some really important things for mental health. If they're struggling with any of those things, that's where we can support them, brainstorm with them, give them some ideas. Maybe they don't know how to achieve those things, and so we can support them with that. But I think that if students can get off to that good start in those different areas, it can be really hard though. Right. I mean, it really can, particularly the sleep. We find a lot of students struggle with the whole sleep thing, but we can provide support.
I think
for
that's
that.
Not just for students, I think that's everybody.
You are absolutely right. I think every person, I think it's a very common complaint, mm-hmm. is struggling with sleep issues. So.
Right. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about students a little bit. What about parents? You know, what do you see as they send their students back, or some students at VU are living at home and then maybe there's these new routines. Do you have any advice for parents handling their own mental health as they go forward in this new step of life?
It's a new role. It's really, really difficult. I would say that there has to be this balance between support, but also letting them make their make their own, mistakes, as well as, making their own decisions. And I really think that that is a balancing act as students particularly go away to college for the first time. And hopefully, and then the other thing is just having, trying to have open conversations, just checking in every once in a while. How are things going? The student may or may not be ready to share that, but just always say, well, if you ever need to talk, I'm here for you.
Right.
I want to listen. I want to support you.
Right.
So.
You're plugged into several mental health entities around the area. What are some services for people that aren't BU students? They're just community members, and they're watching this and they think, I might, benefit from getting some mental health services. Where would you suggest they start looking, or where would you send them?
Well, there's a lot. I will say that there's a lot, but they're all very busy too. So, the Family Health Center has a walk-in clinic on Washington Avenue, and so that is certainly something that they could have access to. There are a large number of private mental health agencies in town, and to be honest with you, it's beyond what I could really go through today, but if they were interested, they could call 812-895-1007. That's Mental Health America's number, and I can give them access to those resources.
Okay, that's a great number to have. We talked about parents and college students, but we can't ignore the struggles that even, starting with preschool, kindergarten, up to grade 12, those students are going through struggles
Absolutely.
as well,
Absolutely.
So what are some things that parents can do to kind of keep an eye on their younger kids and kind of help them out and just kind of make good practices at home?
Well, there's one thing, and actually this is really true across the board, whether we're talking about a college student, a high school student, a grade school student, when there's a change, when there's a big change in their ability to function, in their ability to socialize, in their academics, maybe all of a sudden they're isolating in the room, and it's a big change from what's normal. I mean, we have some children who are more introverted and some children that are more extroverted, but if it's a huge change that you're noticing, that's when it's time to say something, and perhaps even you can always start with your primary care doctor and say, hey, I'm really concerned about this. I want some input about what to do.
Right.
Mental Health America actually has a website. It's mhanational.org, and there's screening tools out there where you can screen for different mental health conditions for children and adults to kind of see, well, should I be concerned? What does this say?
Right.
And based on your score, it gives suggestions about what to do next. So it's kind of a nice little tool that I recommend for parents or for adults who are kind of wondering, what's going on.
Right. And going hand in hand with that, talking about taking an internet quiz, but the internet and social media boundaries for parents. Do you have any guidelines for that, or any places for them to look? Because I know, it's everywhere, and kids' minds aren't really developed enough to maybe handle the entire internet.
No, it's really true that,
it.
our brains don't fully develop until 24, with the prefrontal cortex, without getting too technical, is the thinking part of the brain, and it's just not fully developed.
Right.
And so we have to protect children. And I would say the younger a child is, the more protection is needed. There's a book called The Anxious Generation, and that particular book gives a lot of good information about what parents can do. But I would say that kids, like texting and things like that, kids do need access to their friends.
Right.
But once they start diving into social media, I would encourage them to read books like that and look at resources to learn more about, what are the things that students are using today in terms of social media. It literally changes, it seems like, from week to week, month to month, year to year. So, Snapchat was really, really big for a while, but I don't know if it's as, as popular now. And so it's really about being educated about what the latest thing is. And sometimes you can actually talk to your kids about that. Instead of saying, what are you doing on social media? You could say, well, what are kids doing?
Right.
Ask them like you're really curious, you want to understand. Tell me a little bit more about what your friends are doing, instead of asking them about what they're doing. And then that can be another way of opening that conversation.
Yeah. Well, there's so much, and I'm just grateful that there are so many opportunities for people to reach out now. I feel like that's a big difference from even maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
There's so many more services available. I feel like it's less taboo. And I just feel like, people like you are getting out, you're spreading the awareness, and you're talking about how important it is, and it's just part of our everyday health and life now.
Yeah. Another thing too with social media is it's good to get there's strength in numbers. So if you're a parent that's wanting to limit social media, finding other parents who also, so that you're not the only parent.
Right.
So there's always strength in numbers. So if you can find 2 or 3 parents, and maybe they're all your kids' friends, and you can talk to them and say, hey, I'm really, really concerned about this particular social media thing. We're going to limit that. What are your thoughts about, I think that there's strength in numbers, and if you're all doing it, then they can all commiserate they can all commiserate together. My parent won't let me, my parent won't let me either.
Right.
Where if they feel like they're the only one, sometimes it's a little bit harder.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for all of this great information today, Kathy. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it all.
Thank you.
Once again, for local resources, you can call 812-895-1007, or for more information, you can visit vincenneспbs.org.